Hello, my friends. Welcome back to our channel. Today, I'm going to show you what I think is one of the most adorable fonts I've ever done, and it is this bow homecoming print. And I actually kind of had this setting in I have a project that I kind of keep in Cricut Design Space that's like, play with this, figure out something to do with this. And as I come across things, I put it in there. And I'd had this in there this summer. And then Creative Ribbon came out with this adorable bow imprint, and my mind immediately went to this font. And so what I wanted to do today is let's just go through all cheer. I took this mom down to Craftwork Ribbons when I did some presentations on, of course, you guessed it, imprint ribbon. And I showed kind of how I do my imprint ribbon. But one of the things that I showed everybody was this font. And a couple people asked me for it. And I normally do not release brand new things out on social media until after the season because I want my clients to have it and I want them to be surprised. But this one's just too adorable. I mean, this bow print coupled with this font, it's like they were made to go together. And then I thought, while we're at it, let's go ahead and go through Design Space and I'll show you not just cheer, but other activities where I find things to create my SVGs and my HTV HOCO loops. And then I thought we would maybe design and create these three. I probably won't actually walk through the actual heat press part of it because we did that in our HTV video, but I'll show you how I got these and we'll do a Design Space tutorial. So why don't I put this mum up on the mannequin and let you see it all the way, and then we'll get started with Cricut Design Space. So this is our 9.5-inch single cheer bow themed mum that I took to Craftwork Ribbons for that presentation. Once it has its final home, we'll finish this off here with either a megaphone or maybe a custom cheer bear or a monogram. But I wanted to go ahead and show you because one of the main reasons I brought it was, of course, this adorable cheer imprint. And sometimes you will find an amazing imprint that only comes in a number 9 ribbon, and therefore you don't have it for your normal braiding. For instance, like this military braid over here. So what I did was I showed them a few of my other favorite braids that you can use a number 9. And the intertwine is one of those. I love how it really accents the pattern. And again, I love it right next to that adorable little bow imprint on our HOCO loops. But then also, of course, the large bubblegum braid is another great one. And we talked about in that tutorial how you can weave this in so that you can make the main part of your imprint show. Another good one, though, that I talked about with them is the Texas Champion, because you can just put a number 9 in the middle and then braid it the same way, but you'll be able to show off your imprint in the middle of that number 9. And then, of course, I showed them how we took the cheer and put it vertical as well. So that is our 9.5-inch single homecoming mum. And so what I thought we'd do now is let's go through Cricut Design Space and we'll kind of walk through how I designed those HOCO loops and also some of the cutouts. So here is an overview of that Cricut Design Space. The first line there is our 2-layer homecoming. The second line is the 1-layer homecoming. You know, I like to do those in white. And then underneath is one of my favorite fonts to use, Varsity. And I love replacing the O with the activity. And then I also did cheer, both vertical and horizontal for you. And then look, I haven't done anything with those bow and toes, but since they were there, I went ahead and left them. I have an idea on those, but I haven't had a chance to play with it. And then I have some different palms for you to use. And then I also have the 2-layer Varsity font. And then we have those 3 cutouts that we will make as well. So let's go ahead and get started. And as remember, I'm going to put a link down for this file. So this is going to be a much briefer tutorial, but that you can always refer back to my HTV HOCO loops video. But what we're going to do is we're going to find this letter H, and you're actually not going to go to the text. You're going to go to images. And then if you will click on images, just like you would find anything else, we're going to type in there, just because we're looking for bow, let's just put bow letter H. and let's just see what pops up. And then as you can see, we've got all of these letters that pop up. When I find one that I like, I usually actually click on the creator's name. And this is a creator that I'm actually already following. And so then it will, Apple Grove Design, she makes some really cute things, some really great things for homecoming. As you can see, there's like a paw print, and there's, of course, lots of bows. There's some hearts. There's a soccer ball, which is really, really cute, and I hope to use this season as well. But hopefully, if you kind of peruse through here, you'll find some things, another kind of different variation of the heart, or maybe a star if you're doing a star theme. So there's lots of options, endless options. That one kind of looks like a particular bling to me, so I may go back to that and play with that just a little bit. But this is like all the things that she has. So let's go back and find that letter H. And again, this is an image. It's not a font. So what we're going to have to do, and what I've already done for you, is I've individually pulled in all of those letters. So as I'm finding that letter H again, what you'll do is, if you wanted to pull one of these other ones, say the paw or something like that, you would just need to do it individually for each one, just like it was an image. So let's add that to the canvas. Let's move it down below. Like I said, this is going to be a very brief tutorial. If you have not seen my HTV HOCO loops, I would suggest that after this one, you go back and watch, because I go in more full detail. So I'm going to go ahead and offset this. And what I want to do is, I want to do it to where that top at the top is not meeting, because I still want that crisp H to show. And then let's go ahead and change it to green. Of course, you can change any of these over on the right-hand side to any color you want. But then I'm going to need to go down to the contour, and I'm going to need to hide all those contours, because that way it will make the green show through and you will really see the bow pattern. So really, that's all there is to it. Again, you would need to resize it. We talked about in that HTV HOCO loop video that if you're putting it on a number 16 ribbon, you really don't want it any wider than, say, 1.85 or something like that. And then I always like to, of course, group my offsets together. This one, I know I walked through in real detail on that HTV HOCO loops about what I do with the letter M. This one, I kind of really had to play with it. Let me find it over here, and I'll duplicate it, and I'll kind of walk through with you what I did. Again, you're going to have this file, but you may have another image letter that you find that you just are in love with and have to use. So I actually hit the unlock button. I'm going to show you, when I pulled it in, the M was actually a lot wider. So what I had to do was I had to unlock it and then kind of play with it until I got it to that 1.85 by about 1.5. It ended up making my M a little bit skinnier than she had designed it, but that's what I needed it to be in order for it to fit onto my HOCO loops. And again, if you have any further questions on that, I would refer back to that HTV HOCO loop video. So there is our double layer offset. Underneath is just the single layer. Of course, it's in white, but you know what? If I pop it and make it a different color, you'll really be able to see it. And I'll show you a picture of some loops done in a red single layer, and it looks just as cute. The bow pops just as well in the single layer as well. So let me go ahead and delete these two, and then we will move on to the varsity letters. The varsity font is one that I've been using for years. It's a great font for both mums and garters. And I, of course, love also replacing that O sometimes with fun activities like basketball, football, of course, cheer, you name it. So let's go ahead and we're going to add it as a font. It automatically is going to pop as varsity because it's the last thing I used in this file. But if you'll see, it is a Cricut font, but it is a Cricut Access font. And so you would need to purchase it if you do not have Cricut Access. If you do make a whole lot of homecoming mums and garters, I would highly suggest looking into Cricut Access. I use it all the time. Let's go ahead and make that H. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so we can play with it. I want to show you over on the right hand side, when Varsity pulls in, it's going to pull in that bottom layer for some reason is always hidden, and you can unhide it, and it's a great way that this can make an easy 2-layer font with Varsity. But what I did with this one instead is I went ahead and left that bottom layer hidden, and then I'm going to actually offset for my 2-layer. For my 1-layer, I left it just as that way, and I'll show you a little trick when we're weeding that you can actually utilize the HTV that's inside of it. But let's go ahead now and change and find that little cheer palm. And there's a couple of options. I left a couple options in there, but I wanted to show you, and this is just a good trick to know in general. Let's pull in this cheer palm. And then when we pull it in, I want to show you sometimes something that I do pretty commonly with my images is if I get it in and I know that it's pretty thin. I mean, HTV, I can definitely weed that, but I want it to pop a little bit more. So kind of I'm going to enlarge it a little bit because offset is usually a little bit easier when it's enlarged. And I'm going to offset it not a whole lot, just a tiny bit, like 0.83 or something like that. And then when we offset it, then what I'm going to actually end up keeping is the offset. And then when you're done, it ends up being a little bit of a thicker font. I do that sometimes for script fonts or other fonts that I love it, but I want it to be a little bit thicker. Using the offset and then only keeping the offset is a great way. And that's why you'll see when you click on this one over there that it's an offset. It's because I had done the same thing for that one as well. So we're all done with this cheer palm. So let's get rid of that. And you have 3 left if you want to use any of those. And then let's get to looking at making this H similar to the 2-layer that's right above it, the Homecoming. Again, you could just simply make it 2-layer by unhiding that one, but what I'm going to do is leave it hidden. I'm going to go ahead and change this to white so that I can really see my offset, and then I'm going to offset the letter H, and that's what I did for each of the letters right up above. And again, I think I did like 0.83 because I want there to still be space to really keep that sharp look of the H. Now, as you can see, it looks different. So we're going to have to go over to the contour and we're going to hide all contours. And then once that's done, then you'll see it looks like that. And what happens is our 2 layers actually look like that. And then when we go to weed it, we will weed out the inner part of the white. And I'll show you how I actually save that and use it for something else. So that is how I made the 2-layer Homecoming. And as you can see, I kind of usually go ahead and make the 2 O's in case I decide that I'm not going to use something as an activity, then I can replace those palms as well. So let me show you what this is actually 2 layers. You can't quite see it the way it is, but what happened is I brought in that palm. Let me duplicate it really quick. And I brought in that palm and then I offset it. So if I pull it apart, what you'll see is there's actually an offset, and what will happen is the color of that offset will pop through once that top layer is weeded out. Let me show you, like if I was to change that to red and we were to have a black and red palm, then when you layer those, then you would do it that way. I actually believe when I do this, it ends up being an opposite. Whatever color is the top layer for my letters ends up being the bottom layer of the palm. It just creates a little bit of a different look. And again, you can change any of these colors over on the right-hand side of your panel over in Cricut Design Space. Let's look at some of the other things that are in this file, including the cutouts. So I have a cheer in both horizontal and vertical. In the vertical, what I did is I created the offsets and then I attached them so that when they print or make it and cut on the machine, they'll be all one, so they will fit really well on a vertical ribbon for you that way. That's the best thing I would recommend doing when you do a vertical. That way you can weed it all at once and you don't have to attach each extra letter on the offset. And then I've got some cutouts. That very top bow one I created from the megaphone, but let's walk through those 3 cutouts and the images that I got. So let's start with bow megaphone. I actually, it was one of those that was kind of in one of those little files that I told you. Sometimes when I'm going through and finding megaphone, I found that one and I grabbed it. So I knew it was there, but I went ahead and searched it this way so that you'll know how to find it as well. So let's pull it down at the bottom so I can just briefly show you what I did to create it. I always suggest when you pull a file in to use the down arrow and see all the layers that are there. I know I'm not going to need that pink layer because when I offset it, the offset color is going to come behind that bow. So I went ahead and deleted that. And then I can grab it and we can just offset this. Let's see, let's change it to white and then let's offset it. Again, people ask me all the time, I do my offset numbers a lot just kind of by look. We're going to need to go over and do that same contour and hide all the contours, and then that will make that bow underneath pop by the offset. Let's change it to green, and then we're going to take that offset and we're going to offset it again. Usually my last offset, I try to make it slightly bigger than the other one. And then if you'll see, it's very similar to the one that I created. I flip-flopped the white and the green, and that's why they look different. But that'll give you an example of how you really can make things look different just by changing the color of your offsets. The next one let's look at this cute little don't mess with the bow. And I think I think if you type bow, you'll probably find it. But let's just do cheer bow and see what all comes up. I had to show you that one with the little football. It is so cute. I want to do something with it. You know what? Let's do this one first since it pops up. This is that bottom one. So this is the bigger, the bow, the bigger the cheer. So let's get rid of our megaphone. And then I want to show you again why it's important to look and see how things are. When you do the down arrow, you'll see that all of these are completely separate. So if I was to make it, let me show you what would happen. Let's see. Oh, you know what? The image is actually, it's over the too big, so it's wanting to know what mat I'm going to use. So let me change it and make it a little bit smaller. And then let's try that again. So let's make it. And then let's go down to those pink and purple mats. And if you will see, they're all separate images. So Cricut's going to put them all separately in what it thinks would allow it to cut more efficiently. So what I did is you would want to attach them to make them go the same. I'm going to make it all one color instead of moving it out. That's all a little bit harder to do, and I'll do a tutorial on how to do that. But if you'll see now, it's going to cut the way we want it to cut. So now that we've got it all attached, let's change that color to green. And then what we're going to do is offset it. I'm actually going to get rid of those palms and I'll show you why in a minute, but I'm going to leave them there because I think it'll make my offset a little bit cleaner. And I'm just going to play with the offset until I get it kind of where I want it, knowing that I'm more than likely going to go in and hide the contours on the inside. So again, we'll go down to that bottom right hand side, hide the contours, and let's make it white so that we can really see it. White is, I've gotten to where I really love white as my middle layer because it really makes that pop, top layer pop. But let's go ahead and offset that white one. And then as you can see, it looks very close to the other one. But you can see that the final one that I did does not have those palms. And I do this sometimes for ease of my own self, I know that those will not weed very well when I size that down. So I'm just going to delete those. And all I did was highlight and hit delete on that, just that one piece. And then I can group this one together and then resize it. And as you can see, there is our the bigger the bow, the bigger the cheer. Now let's go see if we can find that cute "Don't mess with the bow." And I'll go back over here to images. Again, I have found all of these in Cricut Design Space. I tried with this one to stick with everything that was Cricut Design Space so that I could share the project. You have to have everything Cricut Design Space in order to share the project. So let's pull this one in. Don't mess with the bow. It's 2 colors. And again, I think that would be cute but for simplicity purposes, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing and attach it by going down to the bottom right hand corner, and we will attach that. And then what it'll do is it will cut all together and it will make it all one color. Let's make it white this time just to make it a little bit different. Then again, we're going to go back to the offset. I think that offset's a little big, so I'm going to bring it in just a little bit. Okay, I think I like that. Let's see if I want to contour any of it. Maybe let's contour this little part, but I kind of like with the swirly "the." And again, it's preference. You can go in and change all those contours and the offsets to how you want them to be. Then let's offset that second layer. And let's see, I think I like that. I may not know till I get it to the right color. Let's see. I want to make it, let's make the second one green. I think that that will really help. And then I really like that. I don't mind that little black popping through again. I really think that it shows off everything. And then you can see that when I pull it apart, there is your 3 different layers. The black one is going to be glitter cardstock. The other 2 are going to be glitter HTV. Before I show you a few weeding tips, I just wanted to make sure everybody's familiar with how to change the colors. Over on the right hand panel, if you'll hit the down arrow, then you'll get all of your layers. And then you can click on each individual layer and then go over on the upper left hand side and change the color. So as you can see, I'm changing here the first 2 layers and I have a completely different look to my bow. So that is the way that you would change the colors to get them where you want them to be for your school colors. The other thing I wanted to show you, and let me show you with the megaphone, is what I do, because if you notice, I have black in this project, and some of my black is going to be HTV and some of it's going to be cardstock. So my cardstock is actually the one that's on the right that's highlighted, and the one that's on the far left is my HTV. I can tell the difference, but you may even want to make them even separate. But just make sure that you do it that way. The other thing you have to do is move them around on your cutting mats. But for me, it just is the clearest that way, is if I make sure that if I'm using the same color and one's HTV and one's cardstock, that I make sure. That way you can see on the cutting mat that when I go to cut it, it's already that way for me and I don't have to worry about it. So just a little quick tip on that. And then another thing I wanted to tell you is there's tons of stuff in this file and you're probably not going to cut them all at once. So you could either start hiding the ones you don't want, but in large projects, and for me, what I do the majority of the time is I will go over and right click and copy the one that I want. And then I'll go up to File, New, and open up a new window in Cricut Design Space and then open up a new project. And then it will just let me paste that in there. And then I can make it just simply from that one project without having to hide and unhide. So if I ungroup this so that Cricut will put them pretty close together. I'm not going to worry about saving it since I have it in my other file. Then they're ready to go. Both of these would need to be mirrored because both of them are HTV. Then let me show you, let's grab one that has cardstock and I'll show you what I mean, the difference between HTV and glitter cardstock. Again, I would highly suggest you go watch my HTV cutout tutorials for a much more detailed on how I do this, but I just want to make sure that you would know that you would mirror anything that would be HTV, which for your HOCO loops are going to be both of them because they're both going to be HTV on the ribbon. And then for your cutouts, the bottom one is going to be cardstock. So that one I would not mirror. I would leave it alone. Of course, on that green one back there, I would move those further together. And I show you in more detail how I do that in my other tutorials. So that is how I prefer to do it. Now let me show you some tips on weeding this little bow. I wanted to show you a little trick when weeding this bow is that you want to make sure you always remember to get the little center, but also there is a little sliver, and I'll show you that as soon as I get everything else out. And I usually turn it sideways. There's a little sliver that you'll want to get out because it really makes your bow show. And so I usually just turn it sideways. And then also for some reason, the letter E, when I go to pull the HTV off, that piece of the E does not pop up. So just wanted you to know that so that you don't do like me and get it almost pressed and realize that your E doesn't look right. So again, I'll just show you again a couple of times how I just take my little weeding tool and scrape and get that out. You also will want to make sure when you get that sliver out that then you also remove it from the carrier sheet so that that little sliver kind of like you can see right there by the E. I'll need to go back and make sure that that gets off my carrier sheet so that it doesn't transfer over to my ribbon when I go to press it. It's a little tedious, but again, it really, really makes your bow pop to do that. And then as a reminder, the little M actually has a little piece right there. It's not as a big deal if you remove it, but it really shows the design off really well if you remove that little piece where the bow is. So there is our bows and the tips. I'll remove all the little slivers, but I want to show you, like once you give it on the ribbon, you can really see that. For the palms, I don't know if you remember, I told you that I actually did the opposite color. So the red's going to be on my top layer. And sometimes I find that bending the carrier sheet will allow me to really see where all those little pieces are. I'm using my Cricut Bright Pad, and then I also have my Cricut lamp on so I can see it. Another thing that just a tip for my homecoming business owners, I love creating HTV cutouts in bulk because let's say I do 10 of these palms, I'm going to get really quick and know exactly where I need to weed out. So just a tip, if you're doing some of those tedious designs, if you'll do them in bulk, even if they're in multiple colors, I think you'll find you'll end up weeding them a lot quicker because you'll find them. As you can see, sometimes I pull them out and then push them through. There's a little sliver that'll need to come off. Here's what they look like on my heat press ready to go. I already showed you the palms that I was going to use with the varsity letters, but I wanted to show you a trick that I use with the varsity font in general is I pull out the centerpiece and I actually keep it to use again. I usually will just pull it a little with my weeding tool and then the rest I will try to pull with my finger so that I don't puncture any of it. And then what I'll do is you'll see that I press those with that palm, and then I will keep the carrier sheet and I will add back in the letter and then I can press them individually. What I usually will do with that is put multiple layers of ribbon since it's a little bit smaller of a font. Here are our finished HOCO loops. As you can see, I added a little bling in the middle of the palm just to finish it off. Again, we love HTV for our HOCO loops. I will put a link to the tutorial full one up above. We love it for all the design options and that we don't have to worry about stickers and anything falling off. If you have enjoyed this cheer video and would like to see more sports specific, please give this video a thumbs up so I will know what to make in the future. And if you would like a further detailed video on weeding and using HTV, leave that comment below as well. Please make sure to subscribe for further videos. Happy creating, friends, and we will see you soon.